And now, the conclusion.
Okay, so what do you think are the keys to success for this show?
Pacing. Pacing is huge.
I would agree.
So one of the problems with Game of Thrones, I say problems like it's not one of the most popular shows ever. Early on, sometimes things dragged a little bit, and things seem stretched out, and you're not quite bored, but you're on the cusp of being bored. But then they way overcorrected once they passed. The last season or two has been beyond the books. They've taken outlines and run with them, and now some of that pacing is so fast that it takes you out of it a little bit, because it's unbelievable that somebody was hundreds of miles away yesterday and now they're across the world doing this today, but meanwhile another story has only progressed a couple of days. The pacing just feels off, and you start to lose. Yes, you have to suspend belief for a lot of things in these kind of things, but when you play with time like that, it feels a little weird. So you need good pacing. You don't need to have super long stretches. So I remember when I very first read Fires of Heaven, I felt like it was so slow and awful, and I hated it, and not hated it by itself, but compared to the other books, I hated it. The second time I read it, it wasn't quite as bad, but I think part of that's because I know what's coming next. But it just felt so slow.
I was the exact same way.
Long.
I was the same way. The first time I read it, it was like that thing of like, I just got to get through it. And then the second time I reread it, or the second time I read it, I was like, okay. And then the third time was like, okay, I actually kind of like it now. But as you said, it's possibly because of where it's leading and that kind of thing.
But you cannot have those slow plotting things in a TV show, because you're going to lose people like that.
Yeah.
You've got to keep the pace moving. You can't spread your attention among too many characters. So Eye of the World's not going to be bad, because Eye of the World...
There's not too many branches.
...was okay. Yeah. It's really in the later books, like when you get to, I don't know, probably the Lords of Chaos, Crown of Swords time frame, where you really start bringing in these extra characters that you want to spend time with. And
yeah, there's like 1,000 named characters in the books or something like that.
Yeah, how really important are some of those? And you cannot get bogged down in all of that for TV. And it slows things down, it stretches things out, it takes you away from the characters you care about.
And that's going to be the hardest part, is the pacing while being true to the story. Because I think it has such a cult following that if they don't do it justice in being true to the story, you're going to lose that cult following, and then the show falls apart. So I think pacing is a big part of... I think you're right. I think that's a big key factor, because... But the other thing, though, is knowing what to cut and what not to cut, because there's going to be a lot of people that get really mad about, oh, well, this was essential and this wasn't. That's going to happen regardless, because you have to make cuts. There's no way you can sit there and do word for word, action for action. But
absolutely.
But finding what cuts. Now, that being said, I think it really works to their favor that the showrunner is a longtime fan, and he tweets out, he's tweeted out pictures of his copies of the books and how worn out they are from multiple rereads. So I think that's...
I haven't seen that, so I have to ask, were they hardbacks or paperbacks?
Paperbacks.
Because those early paperbacks, those did fall apart, man. I had some of those original paperbacks, and those, before they made thinner paper, this is...
Like the book cover would come off.
Yeah, the cover either flat comes off. So like my copy of Fires of Heaven lost, the glue just came unglued on half the cover. But the rest of them, it crinkles so bad you can't even read the spine.
Yeah, I have a couple of those too.
It's like Lords of Chaos or Lord of Chaos in paperback form is over 1,000 pages long.
Yeah, it's...
And when it first came out, that paper was thick. If you find a paperback copy of Lord of Chaos today,
It looks almost the
It's
same size as
probably
the other
it's
ones.
probably 2/3 the size
Yeah.
of the original one. Now I ditched all mine. I splurged eventually and went and bought the four books I couldn't find in hardback. I found them,
Yeah,
but
I've got hardbacks of all of them and paperbacks of the first 5 or 6.
yeah, I ditched my paperbacks. But those paperbacks, those really did not hold up well because they were so thick.
Yeah, but I mean, like he tweeted recently it was a picture of his copy and his mom's copy. And I want to say he picked it up mid 90s. So, I mean, he's been reading for a long
That's
time.
about when I picked it up. I
Yeah,
mean,
so he's a
well, I
long
guess
time
maybe
fan.
the 90s.
So I think that works to the benefit of, like, that gives me a little bit of confidence as a fan of knowing that, like, it's not going to be another like quick cash grab of, like, say Avatar: The Next Airbender movie or the Dragon Ball movie. Like the guy who made the Dragon Ball movie literally said, "Yeah, I don't know anything about the story. We just knew people would buy it."
Yeah, well, so the trade-off of that is you don't want somebody that's so faithful to material that they try and do a word for word thing either, because that
Yeah, as we said, you got to know what to cut.
either.
Yeah,
But if you can have a good mix, I feel like maybe there's some good potential to blend Great Hunt and Dragon Reborn. If we're concerned about pacing, but I feel like you really need Eye of the World. You don't want it to get too slow, but you want to care about the characters. And I feel like Eye of the World is it's when you really get to know most of them. And then what's probably my favorite book of the whole series is Shadow Rising, which is the fourth book.
yeah, I'd say that's
Some
one of the stronger
individually
ones.
get an opportunity to shine.
Yeah.
But you have to care about them before you see that they shine.
Yeah, I would agree. The first book definitely needs to be a proper length to build the scene, build the relationships, and understand the motivations of the different people and what they're doing and why they're doing it and that kind of thing. So yeah, I kind of agree. I think the first book needs to be probably its own season. What are your thoughts on casting? Do you have specific people that you think would be really good, or just in general?
I haven't really thought about it. And what's funny is even before it was announced that it was getting this deal, I used to envision how I thought you might be able to adapt to the screen, because there are, like I said, there's a lot of mental stuff going on. But for whatever reason, I never envisioned people in those roles.
It's like just more of an abstract idea.
Yeah.
Of
Or
person.
like the shots showing this or showing this. Like for whatever reason, I've always envisioned, and this was largely thinking about when it could be a movie and not TV series like it's going to be now. But you kind of embrace the weirdness of the prologue. Just embrace it. Just don't dwell on it too long. So you slam straight into the prologue, and then you've got your title splash, and then they're on the road, right? They're on the road to Emmons Field, and you're showing the road, and the horses are walking along the road, and you start doing your other miscellaneous credits crap, and you come up and you show everybody, and then you start those conversations just before they hit Emmons Field. But whenever I thought about that, I never actually thought about what do the people look like.
Right.
And really, I think this is probably dumb, but some of the things that were emphasized, I would like to see, like Moraine, very commanding, very short,
Very petite. Yeah, that's. I mean, that's a big thing that she's supposed to be very small.
She can't be Gwendolyn Christie. She's got to be some small authoritative type person, and that can be a nobody. I mean, you find someone who can fit the role, and honestly, I don't know how it's going to actually wind up. I almost envision this being like a lot of the ones where they just grab a whole bunch of random British actors.
Well, that's something I was actually going to ask about. So many fantasy Middle Earth kind of things often use British actors. Do you think this should go that route, or do you think it should be more, or maybe even more regional, where like you have some Americans from this region, but like people from this region are British and people from this region are like a Russian kind of thing or whatever?
I don't think you need to necessarily worry too much about where they're from, but I do like the idea of having maybe some different influences in some of the different areas. I mean, they kind of sort of pretend like, I guess I envision Andor being like, it's one whole country, but then the Two Rivers is kind of the backwoods, almost like your southern type.
Right.
But then the whole rest of the world, I do feel like it'd be good to kind of diversify a little bit. Now, sometimes if you go too far, you get into trouble with stereotyping and yada yada.
Right.
We've seen those complaints in a lot of series, particularly Star Wars prequels came up a whole lot. But I do think it's important to show, even within the United States, we have different accents and dialects throughout the country, right? So not everybody needs to sound the same.
See, here's kind of the way that I picture it in my mind is like Andor. I kind of picture as like more American, and like you said, the Two Rivers being a little bit more kind of the Texas of America, and like Kyrian, I kind of envision as more of like that kind of British feel to it, and like Tyr in that area being
French. They're very stuck up there.
Do you know what? That's probably a better one. Probably better French. And then like Tyr being more of like almost like a New York kind of thing. Like I know I said Andor is kind of American, but like kind of middle America versus like
I almost pictured Tyr as more of almost a New Orleans type. Like I don't know, and maybe that's I'm letting my head get shaped by geography, but it's a big port city, and it's got a lot of working class shipping types, and I don't know. I hadn't really thought about that much. I've been wanting to do another reread. Maybe I know. Maybe I'll reread now.
Maybe it's because the way they describe the clothing so much, but I picture like the Shan-Chan as more of like a China Japan.
Oh, that's a clear
kind of thing.
It's a clear
because the way they describe the uniforms and stuff sounds exactly like feudal Japan.
Oh yeah. There's some things that are vary in what they're it's a little ambiguous. They are clearly East Asian.
Yeah. So, I think personally, casting wise, I think Rand, Matt, and Perrin need to be unknowns. I think that if you put a well-known actor in those positions, those characters won't be seen as those characters anymore. You know what I mean?
And counterpoint to that also, well, maybe not counterpoint, but if they either all need to be unknowns or all need to be somebody you know, because I feel like if you know one of them, the focus is going to be on them.
Well, I feel like Moraine could probably be a well-known.
Oh, she could be, but as far as the guys though, the three of them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is I think all three of those guys need to be unknowns.
Yeah, I feel like they're all unknowns, or they're all somebody you're kind of familiar with, because there cannot be a headliner amongst those three.
Yeah, and I feel like the main girls is kind of the same way of like they either all need to be unknowns or they all need to be at least fairly well known. And I think
I could see that either way, or even I could see even maybe using well known within like the British TV community. They've been on Call the Midwife or Doctor Who.
Yeah.
That's fine, but not like they've been in all these blockbuster movies. Now I do feel like Moraine, maybe Lan, they could be somebody that's a little better known.
I feel like The Rock could be one of the Aiel.
Well, and some of the more minor type things too. Like you could have. I feel like there's been people popping up all the time that could be Luz Theron. I mean, I'm blanking right now. I don't know why I'm blanking, but Woody Harrelson's in like everything right now. He could be a solid kind of crazy Luz Theron.
And do you know who would be a good Forsaken? And I don't know which Forsaken, because I think he could do 2 or 3 of them. Gary Oldman.
I could see that, not as Ishmael. I don't think.
No, I'm thinking more like Um,
He could be a good maybe Samuel
yeah,
or
like Samuel or like probably.
I could see that. But now I feel like some of them like I to give you an example, I can't remember the name now. The guy he bail fired in Tier, who was in the thing for like 5 seconds, that could be a nobody. Yeah, absolute nobody. They're on the
Now I'm
screen.
blanking on his name now.
Belal.
Bilal, yeah,
Yeah, he's in the thing for like 3 seconds.
yeah.
Whatever. He can be a nobody. Gary Oldman. That's an interesting thought. I hadn't really thought about him. He could be. Yeah. I could see it. Like, I don't see him as like an Ishmael sort, but maybe a Samuel could be good. Yeah, I could see that.
I sort of feel like the Forsaken probably like should be like almost A-listers of like, because how like TV shows are where it's like the most famous person is the bad person in like all the legal dramas and stuff like that. Like I almost feel like that's how it should be, where like all the Forsaken are like friggin' like Sandra Bullock is Mogadian or something
But you gotta be careful because some of them get a lot more screen time than others if you adapt the books kind of like that,
Right.
There's probably 3 or 4 of them that get a lot of time.
Yep. Mogadian and well, she gets a ton of time.
She gets a ton, and so does what's her name, the reincarnated.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on her
one.
name now. Lanfear.
That was gender switched.
Lanfear. No, the
No,
gender
no,
switched
no,
one.
not Lanfear. The one that got killed in the first book and came back as a woman, like a few books later.
No, he wasn't killed. It wasn't the first book.
I thought it was an Eye of the World killing sort of thing, like not Eye of the World the book, Eye of the World the location.
No, that was a fight against.
And who was the other one?
But no, that one was killed later on.
Osagar and Arangar.
Yeah, but that was later on. That wasn't book one. Book one, he faces Samael as not Samael.
Samael comes later, not Samael.
Yeah.
So he sees Ishmael, but
Ishmael. There you go. That's.
But Balthamel and the other one that I can't remember also show up at the Eye of the World. And there was this whole thing of like, oh, they must have been close to the seal because they look like crap. And they were killed but not balefired there and brought back later.
See, I was thinking that was later in the story.
Now I'll have to look it up because I'm going to worry.
Yeah. But yeah, I sort of feel like the Forsaken should be like A-list actors, while your main characters are unknowns or lesser knowns.
I can see some of that largely because sometimes the screen time is limited. I do think Ishmael maybe is not quite an A-lister. Maybe somebody you recognize, but not. So maybe not unknown, but maybe not a big time. But then also with him, if you keep to the story, there's the opportunity to recast him halfway through the series.
That's true. When he
that's true of a few of them.
Yeah. Talking about Luce Theron as like the kind of the crazy one, you could do someone like Nicolas Cage.
That's actually not bad. I hadn't thought about that, but that's not a bad thought. Just not necessarily early Luce Theron. I think if I saw him in the prologue, I'm not sure I would totally buy it.
Yeah.
Supporting material, but in the book 6, book 7, full blown crazy Luce Theron face in the head sort of thing, that I totally buy.
And I was trying to think of, like I said, I think for sure the 3 main guys need to be unknowns. But the girls, I was trying to think of who could be the girls, and this is that point where I feel like I'm getting old and out of touch with some of the younger actresses and stuff.
Likely.
But I thought an interesting pairing for Egwene and Elaine would be Rowan Blanchard and I forgot her name. Sabrina Carpenter from Girl Meets World.
See, now I'm going to say that I'm old. I've seen a couple of those episodes. I've seen a few episodes of that show, but I don't know who's playing who. So,
And now they're at that age that it would be more fitting to the book because I want to say they're both around 18-ish.
well, so all of Rand's girls are supposed to be late teens, 16, 17, 18.
Well, that's what I'm saying, like 17 or 18.
Nynaeve's supposed to be probably 23.
23, yeah.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so I think those girls would be an interesting pairing because they are already such good friends, and that comes into play later on in the books as they get closer and closer.
Yeah, I'm willing to bet, though, I bet you see a Nynaeve that is cast older.
I do too. I can almost bet it's going to be someone in their 30s.
Almost everybody is cast older than what they actually are. And then she needs to be believably older than the others. I could see her being somebody in her 30s.
That's
and then
what
the
I
other
think
girls
too.
supposed to be playing 17-year-olds are probably somebody in their early 20s.
Yeah, I think you're probably right on that. Nynaeve, I think.
Nynaeve, I always said the name that way. I want to say the glossary pronunciation is Nynaeve or something. I don't know.
No, I think it's actually Nynaeve. I think
I'm going to stick with what I think.
I think it's Nynaeve, and I'm pretty sure that's also how they did it in the audiobooks. Was Nynaeve.
The audiobooks were also pretty famous for mispronouncing names too. So
I don't know. I checked a lot of them against the glossary, and they seemed pretty right.
Well, it may vary by book too.
Well, there's a few of those, but I think Nynaeve could be another kind of a little bit better known than some of the others. Moraine. See, the problem with Moraine is finding someone that would fit the aesthetic right. Because she's supposed to be really beautiful, but like really petite, but also imposing.
Well, and I don't think you're ever going to get exactly the ageless look that they want.
I'm guessing there's going to be a lot of Vaseline involved with how they do their faces
really,
and stuff.
I mean, that's kind of how they describe it a little bit, is like the Vaseline or like a Botox sort of thing.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
You can't really tell how old they are, but it looks young, but it's not quite right.
Yeah, so like maybe they'll do something weird contacts wise, and then do a lot of kind of Vaseline to lose wrinkles and stuff like that. But yeah, I just don't know who could be in the running for those types of roles. Yeah, that came across on the video. Yeah,
it doesn't show on mine.
Okay, but there's did you ever see Once Upon a Time?
No, that was something I always meant to watch, and partly because I'm going to comic sidetrack again for a second. I started reading Fables, which I never finished, but I really enjoyed. And if you ever find it on sale or something, if you've ever played the Telltale video games, A Wolf Among Us.
I've heard about it, but I haven't played it.
It's really good. It's really good. I played it before I read the comics. It's a DC Vertigo comic, Fables. It's super popular. A lot of Once Upon a Time, what I saw of it feels like it kind of is inspired by a lot of what goes on in Fables. But I haven't actually sat and watched a whole lot of the show.
Well, there's a girl that plays young Snow White. Yeah, young Snow White. And I think she's in her... I want to say she's in her mid to late teens now. And I think her name's Bailey Madison. I think she could be a good contender for an Egwene as well. Because she's got that very, like, innocent kind of face. And she also fits the right age and all that.
You want innocent that you could eventually buy off as commanding.
And I think when I saw a picture of her as a little bit older, I'm like, okay, I think that she could grow into that kind of thing. So, I'm anxiously awaiting more news because right now they've just said that it's coming. They haven't talked about casting. They haven't talked about anything other than the showrunner. He's tweeted out things that they've got X number of whiteboards storylined and stuff like that. So I'm curious to see when they're planning on launching, or even when they're planning on casting and letting us know all that kind of stuff. Last thing on that, what do you think about the distribution through Amazon Prime?
I have my doubts at first, but it feels like this Jack Ryan show has really taken off and gotten a lot of positive response. I personally haven't watched it yet. I fully intend to. It's just something I haven't gotten around to. Two kids kind of puts a damper on that, and I watched too many shows already. But I fully intend to watch it. I've heard lots of good things about it, and the fact that can seem like it's doing well on a platform, I think speaks well for this being able to do well. But we're just going to have to see, streaming shows, it also may depend on how they decide to tackle it. Do they do a once per week sort of thing? Do they do it in batches? Do they dump 5 episodes now and dump 5 episodes 2 months later? Or do they dump them all?
That's a good point. I honestly hadn't considered how the release schedule would affect it.
Yeah, I almost feel like this one needs to be a weekly thing.
I do too. I think if you let them binge it, they won't be able to wait until season 2 and they'll be done with it.
And when you binge, also, that makes your cliffhangers less important.
Yeah.
Because you can just watch the next episode. There's no time for the community to go and discuss it and build buzz and everything. It's just, you're just blowing through it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it needs to be a weekly thing instead of a season release.
Yeah, and you've been seeing a little bit more of that with some other things. Like the Star Trek shows have been like that. The stuff that DC is putting on their streaming service is like that. I think that as much as I would love to be able to just sit and watch however much I want, I think sometimes it can be better for the show to at least do it in small batches. Maybe you can do batches, but maybe do small batches.
Yeah, 2 or 3 episodes.
Season and just because then people watch it and they're done and they consume it all in a week, and now it's over a year until you get a new show.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I did that with. If you've not watched yet, I recommend you watching the Castlevania anime on Netflix.
Yes, I haven't finished season 2, but I did start it.
I love it, but the problem is it's a quick watch.
It's a very quick watch,
and especially the first season is like 4 episodes.
Yeah,
but it's quick and you're done, and then it's going to take forever to do the next one.
Yeah.
Spread it out a little bit, even if it's just another month or two. That's still a month or two that's allowing you to think about it more, and it's not just a flash in the pan and gone.
And it's more in your mind. Like I said, if you get the chance to just binge it, there's going to be a lot of people that drop off after that because they don't care. They have too many other things that come up, and
right, you're done with it. You don't care about the finer points of stuff. There's no discussions with things about what happened in episode 4 because I already watched episode 10.
Yeah, so yeah, I agree. Okay, so yeah, I think we've gone on for long enough, and I'd like to do it again sometime. And I appreciate you coming on, James. If you didn't know, this was my brother James, the uber nerd of the family, and I appreciate you coming by. Leave your comments down below. If you liked this episode, let me know. If you didn't, let me know what your thoughts are. I'd like to hear it. Remember to share it with your friends, like it, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. And until next time, thanks for coming by. Be good to each other and have a good one.